and we're off.
Okay. So this is Khula Zonke farm. The meaning of Khula Zonke is farming for everybody. The farm is situated in Johannesburg in South Africa. It's a plot of municipal land, originally reserved for youth farming, and the first project actually failed. So this is a second shot at it. And during the first initial project, they were farming with some chemicals, and now they've decided to go another route, which is the permaculture design route, and it's a co-op for the youth of the community to create job opportunities. We know the challenge is that the unemployment rate is very high. With COVID, it is even worse. I just listened this morning, they said unemployment rate is sitting at 50%. So that is a huge problem for us. The challenge was that pesticides was used in the farming, and now we're going to go the regenerative route using the permaculture design principles. Can I go next?
Okay.
Or are you able to share?
Yeah. So there's okay. I'm gonna have to come out of this so that and go into YouTube, because I think that'll be better. But this is just a short film we've created. So you can see this now, the film.
Yeah.
Has it changed?
This is right. No.
Sorry, has it changed to YouTube? It's not on.
Yes, I can see. Yes, YouTube. Yeah.
Right. Great. So, do you want to introduce the film, Freya?
Okay.
No, we'll go for it. We'll just play.
Hi, my name is Khula Zonke. I'm the co-founder of Khula Zonke Agricultural Cooperative. It's a cooperative that's in South Africa, in Gauteng. We're in Johannesburg. We're farming in vegetable crops and hopefully animal farming in the future.
Alice is our only female at the moment, and she's also the chairperson. This is one of our bright stars. He's actually got a degree in agriculture. Litabo as well, he's got a diploma in agriculture. And then Spongiseni is our treasurer, also farming experience. And yeah, I'm just mentoring
that we are facing in our community. There's a lot of drugs in our community. There's a lot of drugs in our community as well. There's a lot of I shouldn't say sadness, but there's a gap that can be filled by such a facility. So Khula Zonke is aiming to be at the end a learning facility for one, so that we can teach people about permaculture, we can teach people about using the land in the right way, also tackle the unemployment rate. So our main aim is to be a contribution to our community. There's a lot of hungry people around the community, so also helping secure the food around will also be a part of Khula Zonke. If you had to ask me why permaculture, I would say previously the space that we are in was used not in a natural type of way. Most chemicals were used to tackle pests, to grow the crops as well. So in time, the soil has lost its natural nutrients, so it's not producing the quality crop as it used to. So we have been learning about permaculture. So we have found that there's certain methods that you can use to regenerate the soil. in a sustainable way. So we are working with nature. We have land to make our own compost heaps, so that also saves us money, because where we are, we do not have that type of money to be buying compost and so forth. So we have land that we can make our own compost. We have land that we can make our own worms so that we can have liquid manure. We have learned about using nature, using crops to make our own pesticides as well. And also using grass and using newspapers, you can regenerate the soil in a sustainable way. So we are not experts on permaculture. On my side personally, I've learned that mulching the soil decreases the work rate that we are doing. So it also increases our productivity. So moving forward, we'd like this to be a permaculture type of environment, because we are working with nature as well.
So that was just a short piece. And then I'll go back to present. So I think I said I'd do this slide. So when we started out, obviously we had to start with the client questionnaire, which was the full team being involved in that. So Katie was really active in that stage as well. And we were asking, who is it for? So we found out that it was located in a suburb. As we mentioned before, it's for the unemployed youth and graduates, for single mums, rehabilitated community members, as it is impossible to find employment with a criminal record. But no one is interested in the person that produces fresh organic farming. So a big thing would be around, changing the perspective of being a farmer. The obstacles looks at the ability to have the funds, human resources, youth, and that kind of perception that the tunnels are already in poor condition, as we've mentioned about using chemicals previously, the negative perception of farming and as a career due to a complex history and a lack of awareness of permaculture. So we asked, what is it like to be a young person in Johannesburg? We found out it's tough. People are unemployed. There's a lot of peer pressure. There's life in the fast lane. So Johannesburg, as well as the economic hub of South Africa, which maybe is a contrast to being a farmer. There's a vibrant, easy to move around. There's access to some resources that rural communities don't have. And it is a fun life if you're in the middle class, but hard for those who live below the breadline. We also asked how we could influence young people, and we discussed about skill sharing within the community, developing relationships through shared needs, and working together to uplift each other through the positive benefit of exercise, eating fresh and organic food together, and also by allowing the youth to add value to their community so their own needs are met and that they have that surplus to share.
Okay, you want me to continue, Isby?
Go on.
And the need was really for the youth. Unemployment, their needs is like unemployment, they need leadership, development skills, internships. For the family, that would mean more quality time together because of the constant fast life. Parents work harder and longer hours. Kids are in aftercare and centers as well, or home alone with other siblings, older siblings, between 6 and 7 p.m. That's when parents actually come home. For the elders, it means care and a supportive, inclusive, to the broader family. Some elders also assist in the caregiving of school-going children. And where can they meet their needs currently? With internships with government departments to acquire the necessary job experience and exposure, and with some corporate companies. So our actual needs, the must-haves, was like organic food growing, creating compost, upskilling, the enterprise development. And the other nice-to-haves was to have our farm audited by PGS and certified training on regenerative sustainable farming using permaculture principles. Because in South Africa, to actually be part of the organic society, you have to have your farm audited by PGS. And that is what we're aiming to. And then it's easier to access the market through PGS. Because there's a group of farmers and we also belong to that group. So let's say they need green peppers and then they would just phone us, do you guys have green peppers? Because they know that we organically certified, they would actually just buy from us and send it into the market.
So this is using the base map. You design. Yeah, start off a design. We were looking at the direction of the sun. I'm pretty sure this is when we did it in the summer. So our summer was your winter. So I'm assuming this is a kind of winter period. Oh, there. Well, I don't know. Yeah, your winter in July.
Yeah.
And then this is another side of the base map. So this was a sketch done by you, Faya, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Katie turned it into a key design map. And yeah, I'll let you talk about just some of those key things that you wanted to make sure that, a flat 2D wouldn't include, really. So
okay, so this was it, the base map. What was basically on the farm during that time. There's quite a bit of happening on the farm at the moment, a lot of planting going on. But the top 3 tunnels was white polytunnels. We call it the white polytunnels. They actually did hydroponics on that in the first project, the failed project. And here, this is black, the black tunnels, which is just I forgot what you call it.
Would you call that a shade house?
Yes, yeah. These 3, but they're actually in very poor conditions. We've since got some more of a shade cloth and then just covered it. This is where our caretaker is staying at the moment. So he actually makes sure that the place is safe. And if there is any problems, he would then inform us. This is a park play area. There's some swings there. So sometimes kids come in there and play. These are tires because of the soil erosion. These tires are in place and at the moment they planted some agapanthus in there. That's our compost heap that we started. This is a training center and it's also the bathrooms and the shower there. This is new. It's a car wash area. This is also new. And this is a little enterprise that was also started during that time of lockdown. And they're selling vegetables and fruits, like a little greengrocer there. This was a tank that was just standing and we're going to use that as one of our resources. And also just tires here to help with the soil erosion. Soil erosion is actually quite a big problem there for us. I don't know, is there anything else you want to add? Okay.
No, I think that's great. But yeah, that sloping like down, isn't it? And that's where
Yeah,
erosion.
yeah, the site slopes from the top to the bottom of the map, and then causing quite a bit of soil erosion, and especially when with heavy rains, and we're going into our rainy season now. So there's quite a bit of soil damage with that.
Great. And I'll go on. So then we started to look at the existing functions, resources, and problems. Faye, do you want to do this slide as well?
Yeah, I'll do this one, don't worry. The functions is actually mainly for vegetable growing and selling. The compost heap, the site for enterprise, the car wash is there, the veggie shop, and the kids play area. So if people come and bring their cars to the car wash and there's kids there, there's actually a nice play area for them, which creates nice community in the area. Our resources is the 6 large tunnels. It's 10 by 30 meters. The first 3, as I said, the top 3 white polytunnels, as we call them, was used for hydroponics, and then and for regular crops. And now we've got a compost heap. We've also got a wormery during that time. There's a water tank. There's discarded tires, the vegetable shop, the caretaker building, and the storeroom. The classroom, which we intend using for our training sessions, is vehicle access, and the car wash that is run as a business on site. The problem is, like we said, high unemployment rate in the area, and farming is not a desirable occupation. The slope from the north to the east, that causes significant, soil eroding on the south side beneath the polytunnels. And then because we situated on open, close to an open veld, we actually have problems with rats and snakes in the area, especially when it comes to a compost heap, because it's situated closer to the fence.
Okay, I'll do this one. So the design, what we worked on, short-term, medium, and long-term. So the functions I'll go through short-term first. We want to start with the vegetable growing and then being able to sell those on site to the community. As mentioned in the video, the compost heap is really important, so that is an affordable way of like maintaining the quality of the soil. Using the enterprise and job creation so that people are coming on to site and kind of staying there as well. Teaching regenerative farming and permaculture skills, so it's kind of skills for life, and mitigating soil erosion, which we've mentioned a number of times is a problem, and then also conserving the water, so collecting that rainwater, especially in the seasons when it happens, so that you have water throughout the rest of the year. In the medium term, there's talk for going into some rabbit and chicken farming. And long term is design and develop the second phase of available land, which I believe is kind of is it adjacent on that site, so it's kind of, there's still land really close by. And then finally, on the long term, it would be to have a model youth development centre that other communities can learn from. So in my ability to try and support the project, I've tried to use the different principles throughout each design function. So we would be designing in a way that's going to be able to demonstrate, educate, and replicate, and that can help with that ongoing learning through experience. So I'm sure Steve knows all of these off by heart, so this slide is just to kind of demonstrate when I've put in these numbers, on the other slides, it's these design principles apply to the functions that we are then talking about. Does that make sense to you, Steve? Are you with us?
I'm with you all the way. Brilliant.
Great. So you'll be able to see that, yeah, these little circles, and then I'll talk about after how I feel like, you know, ongoing people will learn the principles. So Faye is going to do each slide that's like this, and then I'll do the next one on and talk about the principles applicable to each design function.
Okay, so we've got vegetable growing, and the tunnels have grown some mustard spinach during the trial run in the very cold winter. And I actually can't just see the whole slide, I think. Yeah, we've got poor quality net used for each tunnel. Ideally, we would like to really keep the heat and retaining plastic cover. That would be ideal. The desire is to produce organic vegetables to be sold to the community through a vegetable shop on site and through the markets, organic markets. And then we also aim to do companion planting this September on the bottom 3 tunnels, which is your netting tunnels. Funding for seedlings has been secured and purchased, and they've actually just started planting. So we got some green peppers and onions, white onions and red onions. We're also planting tomato and basil together. We've got some high value crops to grow in the top 3 tunnels, and that would be ginger and turmeric. It's also a high demand to grow vegetables after the first rains, and these will be your maize, pumpkin, spinach, and beans. To meet the desired collecting water in the soils at the highest point of the site, and the water, use the water then to irrigate the tunnels around the soil. We're also planning to plant some sweet potatoes just to slow the water down. And then in the tunnels, we will also use some compost, cardboard, some mulch to retain soil quality and the health, and by doing companion planting.
Great. So yeah, this is how, for the first principle, to observe and interact with, you know, as the seasons go on, and observing the soil type, the different needs of the plants, and how the seasons are affecting vegetable growing. Principle 2, looking at the light, sunlight and shade, water flow and storage, windbreaks, seed bank and seedling nurseries. And principle 3, the diversity of yield through herbs, vegetables, fruits with varying crop values. 4, looking at how we include plants that are pest resistant, that increase the nitrogen and soil improvement, which will then help with the process of creating mulch, and yeah, how throughout the water storage kind of helps the drought survival. Principle 5 would be learning ongoing about coppicing to create the structures and the paths, using the compost and mulching and water saving. Principle 6, we've got repurpose tires into herb planters, where this stops erosion, but also is helping with having continuous, you know, continuous like herbs through propagation of these plants. And number 7, so the polytunnel stacking, and then we've also designed in a forest garden, so that's kind of continuously learning there. Number 8, creating ecosystems for organic growth and using that companion planting method. So improving the access to food and enterprise, building a community and individual resilience. Number 9, by this point I've forgotten the original principles, I'm sorry. But to build community at Khula Zonke and having public engagement in sharing skills and workshops. So an introduction to permaculture through having practical activities, instructional diagrams, and documenting the progress. Number 10, we've got knowledge of crops to create ecosystems and produce new skills and experience for the benefit of the youth community and to improve self-resilience and self-worth. The design principle 11, looking at food forests to demonstrate the long-term value and of how to maximize space. That one's about edges, I know that. And then 12 is an interactive growing space for the community to learn and expand their knowledge from the farm into their home, to kind of continuously spreading permaculture wider creatively.
Okay. For vegetable selling, we've got we've got a shop on site and some non-organic veg growing was growing prior in the tunnels. The desire is actually to serve the community with organic vegetables, and we know that everybody should be entitled to, able to afford them. Requires auditing as an organic farm by PGS, and business development is needed. So we've actually just done a business plan and we're able to get some funding. So that's how they bought the seedlings that they actually planting now at the moment.
So again, looking this time at vegetable sellings and how this applies to the principles. So yeah, principle 1, observe and interacting the habits and patterns in what produce grows, as well as what people buy, and that being, aligned with the time for the harvest. So catch and store energy, water catchment from the shelter, solar energy, and encouraging those people who are going to the shop to also come and get involved on the farm, so being part of the harvest days. Number 3, so the yield of having raw produce, as well as making preserves, herbal mixes that can then be sold, whether that's as tea or something else, and also making compost. Applying self-regulation and accepting feedback. I've got them down now. So growing organic prior to the certification to build a reputation. That is going to be recognizing the needs of the community, so like the need for healthy organic produce, as well as responding by selling first what is necessary and then what is desired. And as Fayed mentions, like the organic certification will help them when it comes in terms of getting more produce sold. Using natural resources would be a collection point for materials, and being able to then repurpose them, so you can actually encourage people to donate stuff that maybe they can't use, but also whether you upcycle stuff and then buy stuff secondhand, and kind of being a bit of a hub for the community there. Producing no waste, looking at ways to store and distribute products, and again mentioning fresh, preserved and propagated plants. So design from patterns to detail. Number 7, knowing seasonal patterns, preparing for the increase of demand and producing surplus. Number 8, integrate rather than segregate, how selling produce can encourage new members and encourage that active involvement in growing and harvesting. So I think, yeah, the more people see that being done, the more likely they're going to get involved. Number 9, the small and slow solutions would be continuous production of produce. That requires careful design for when and how to grow and harvest across the seasons. So number 10, value and use diversity. That would be like demonstrated by creating opportunities that value different talents and enterprise skills. So when people have been learning permaculture, encouraging them to then, you know, come up with something that, you know, means something to them that they want to do and celebrates their talents. And 11, so a design that allows the farm to, you know, expand its edge, so it's not just on site but encouraging permaculture off site. And number 12, creatively use and respond to change. So yeah, that seasonal high and low demand, selling a range of different products basically.
Okay, we've also added the compost heap. So it was added during the time when I did the training. So the desired would be a well-functioning compost heap, free from venom and making compost affordable. It will definitely help us because we don't have funds to actually go and buy.
It's a really big plot of land. So yeah, looking at how we demonstrate and educate and replicate these principles through having a compost heap, we'll be looking at observing the soil as it is now and looking how that improves over time. So knowing how the compost is benefiting the plants. Catching the energy through using food waste, dried weeds, wood and other forms of carbon, whether you can encourage other people to bring, you know, if they're not able to compost at home, like encouraging them to bring and add to the heap. And the yields, so yeah, creating compost, reduce costs, and it also increases the ability to produce quality produce. 4, we would be creating a variety of, or using, you know, a variety of composting techniques that use different amounts of time. We mentioned already that there's a compost heap and a wormery, so the different in terms of like time, allowing continuous soil improvements. Number 5, natural resources, so creating a way to improve the life cycle of the natural resources through composting, and yeah, not seeing anything as waste. Number 6, we're looking whether, you know, there's a mention of a toilet on site, if that can become a compost toilet, how you can use both urine and feces separately in different ways. The wormery, having a cold compost and a hot compost, and that these are all ways that we can, you know, not create waste, but things be put back into the farm. Number 7, looking at the patterns to detail, so creating the space for compost to take place and encouraging people to take responsibility, so making sure that it's in a place that you know, is functional, and the way in which it's done, so that we don't have the kind of rats and vermin and then people aren't fearful of that, snakes for example. Number 8, incorporating compost into an everyday activity, and that again, sharing responsibility, so everyone is actively involved in composting. Number 9, sharing and understanding of those techniques will then help, again, encouraging people to compost at the farm, and also trying to spread it to their home as well. Or the other way around, if they have something at home, that they're bringing it to the farm. Number 10, going on the space to keep carbon, food waste and green, so that they're recognised for their value. I feel like I'm repeating myself a few times here. But yeah, number 11, designing where the compost heaps are in the layout of the farm, so it's close to where that compost is then going to go on the soil. And number 12, using the first one, the observation on how that soil has been improved, and then yeah, sharing about how to make that tea and compost tea and compost soil.
Okay, site of the enterprise and job creation. Currently, we've got a car wash and a shop, and the design is allowing people to earn money from the site and to innovate in enterprise. Give people some income, generating some income.
So yeah, the benefits of these in terms of the principles. So understanding the needs of our community, the farm becomes a place created with them. The principle 2 would be the energy of the youth is kind of stored and put into creating a better future for the whole community. Design principle 3, supporting each individual by engaging with the farm, again that benefiting the wider community, the families, the elders too. Number 4, where people have these skills and interests and experience, they are then shared and replicated through having the facilities used on site. Number 5, looking at education through peer learning, hands-on experience, and then the encouragement to try new things. So obviously, yeah, with permaculture, it's all about, you know, trying something out and observing it and, yeah, going through these principles. Number 6, improving the attitude of an individual and to each other, also to the land and their community, through having that ability to create their own enterprise or employment on the farm. Number 7, from patterns to details. So where some jobs are obvious and that there's tasks to be done, there might be other jobs that come through, like the relationships that are then formed and kind of partnerships as well. Number 8, so like Faye has mentioned, the partnership with the rehabilitation centre, like that's how it's a space then that's able to integrate people into their community through having that active participation, and also having a space to go to that they know that's, you know, moving on to the next one is there for building the confidence, trust and skills over time, so that everyone is on their own path and they do that together. Number 10, so there's many opportunities for their own enterprise to start from the project. That's, you know, valuing diversity. 11, increasing participation within the youth. Again, that's just talking about the benefit of the wider community, and that's having a space that's, you know, intergenerational and it's for everyone, and that everyone kind of benefits from the young people taking their part. 12, so creatively use and respond to change. Learning ongoing about the cooperative work is kind of having that improvement of life for all, just by, yeah, understanding those principles and living a cooperative life.
Okay. Teaching of regenerative farming on the site. Existing, the community come to use the space for the car wash, the vegetable shop, the children's play area, and they also able to interact with each other. So we build community, and in future with the animals that we plan on farming with. The desired is teaching the target group practical skills in terms of why do we have a compost heap, And why do we have soil erosion? How can we prevent that using the site differently across seasons? When it's too cold, we can grow, and we can't grow, we can teach new permaculture farmers to design new sites across Johannesburg, and the benefit of the education center. And then people can also learn some new skills and share their challenges to the design solutions together. It requires a demonstration garden area for teaching practical skills. We're also planning to have a forest garden to design with the youth what solutions they can find to problems like soil erosion, pest management, sustainability of the project through community involvement, and designed to meet desired, where it will go and what will be in the demo garden, for example. Okay, to mitigate soil erosion, existingly, we've got soil erosion, and when it rains, following the slope from the north to the south, some tire walls is in place already to try and reduce the soil erosion, but it's unsuccessful on the south side. And we'll show you in the picture. Desired is to obviously stop the soil erosion so that tunnel is not at risk of collapse at the bottom end. Designed to meet the desired, construct a barrier which could make it part of the raised beds to integrate into the teaching area on the side. And another option could be a living wall, where we just build a wall, some tires with some lavender. These are all the discussions that we had, some catnip, some chrysanthemums, marigolds. We even looked at vetiver grass as well.
I remember that these lavender, catnip and chrysanthemums were about rats. Apparently don't like those.
Yes, yes, yeah.
So hopefully deterring some of those pests. And marigolds are really good for pest control.
Yeah, it is. Okay, our design for water conservation. Currently, we've got a 2,000 liter tank, watering for crops done with hose from main supply. The desire is to conserve and reuse the water to reduce water consumption. And the design to meet the desired was some grey water recycling, reuse water from showers into the toilet, and then collect some water during our rainfall and harvesting that from the two areas. That's the training air center and the caretaker's house.
Yeah, we're on to the design. Do you want to introduce like who did it and?
Yeah. Well, you pull your whole family in when you've got a project. So yeah, my son is a town planner, so it was actually just through networking with him that I got somebody that could do this for us. His name is Kevin, and Kevin did us the huge favor to make this. Actually, as I said, it took a little while, but it was worth it because it's the base map, and so it will build on future projects on the space and the area that is still vacant land, but also for youth development.
Do you want me to go closer in?
Yeah. I think let me start here. Okay. Let me start here with the swales. Up on top.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be a bit easier. Yeah, okay. So this is a fencing that we've got at the moment, but we thought to slow down the erosion, it would be best if we start with swales just outside the property wall, so that water can slow down. And then the plan is then continue with the swales just before the stop tunnels, and maybe plant some sweet potato in those. This is the white polytunnels that they use, that was previously used for hydroponics, and there's also some soil erosion here. So the idea was then to plant some, with the tires, to plant inside maybe some vetiver grass. That's what we were planning on doing. Okay, this is where our compost heap is situated at the moment, and this is the vacant land area. As I said, we're getting a lot of rats from this site. We've also got some rosemary bushes in front of all these tunnels at the moment, and that also seems to keep some of the soil from just running through the tunnels. So it also helps us with the soil erosion. We've got that's just the gate that is in place. We've got a wormery, and the plan is, at the moment we're using an old bath for our worm farm, but in future is to put the wormery in each tunnel, so that each tunnel has got its own wormery. We've also got some tires here, and this is all for soil erosion. I mean, it just comes down this way. And yeah, and this is what we were planning, either talking about either building a wall, putting a structure in place, or continue with the tires, and then maybe just plant some vetiver grass there, or lavender, even just something with some deep roots that can actually help, because our fear is that if this continue, we will lose all the soil here with these bottom tunnels. This is where we're planning on doing our forest garden, and the bottom area will also be part of our demonstration. So this is where we're going to have our physical demonstration. So we'll be able to show them about the food forest. We were planning on teaching them with some spiral gardens, some keyhole gardens, some nursery beds. That's what we're planning. This is the enterprise with a vegetable shop. And this is just some storage area. That's actually a table that is outside that vegetable shop area where people can buy food and enjoy the meal there. Can we just go towards the caretaker? Yeah, that's thanks, SB. This is the play kids area. So at the moment when kids come, and on Saturday they actually had kids that did some dancing there. So that's the kids play area. This is where we want to the water conservation, so tanks collecting rainwater. We also looked at some solar, especially with our power outages. I think it would be a good thing to have some solar. This is the education center. This is the car wash area. And let me just move down a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add, SB?
I was just going to say, on the bottom here, there's the water taps.
Yes,
So across, you've got tap points for each for 4 polytunnels.
Yeah.
In the education centre and in the living quarters.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
you got everything else. I think that was great. And then this is the bit as well for the future, isn't it? More.
Yeah, that's for future. That's for future development. That's for future. But it's also it's actually about. I think we measured the other day, just by estimate, it's about 4 times the size of what they currently have. So there's quite a big piece of land available. But it's about optimizing this piece of land and making this project a success, and then they'll make other land available to the youth project.
Mm. So that's really the end of the presentation. We can discuss this, I suppose, outside of the slides. Is there challenges and learning that you want to share first, Faya?
And I think for me a challenge.
You've spoken loads, but if you want to, I feel I've left it.
No, I think for me the challenge was really the distance. I think not being close and really giving the information. Sometimes I wondered that I covered everything, whereas I felt that maybe an extra pair of eyes would have seen it differently. And yeah, I think that was a challenge for me. Was the rest of the group really depended on my input. So I sometimes felt I wasn't challenged. It was just Faya said, and then it must be like that. Yeah, I don't know. For you?
Yeah, I guess because it was an existing thing. Like it was.
Yes.
Maybe that was where I felt like I couldn't say. And even that, it's like the knowledge of the plants and the seasons and everything, how that influences, growing in South Africa. And like, I feel like I'm very early in everything to do with permaculture. So it's just like, I felt I learned loads, but whether I couldn't challenge you, maybe that's where I felt like I was just learning and trying to engage as much as possible. But then also, partly not knowing what a role for me was. I remember at the beginning I was like, yeah, just tell me what to do, just tell me. Like I need someone to say this is what I can contribute, I suppose. And yeah, but then I've just really enjoyed it, and I think like you are a really great person to have contact with, so I've appreciated all of it. And I do want to stay in touch, and I do want to know how things are, and eventually I'll come visit when things seem safe to do so. And yeah, there are there's connections that I have in my uncle's in Johannesburg, so I definitely think it can happen. So yeah, we'll work on that. Yeah.
And thanks to you and the rest of the group that really make this project come alive. I think even I remember when I said to Lisa, I think this is what I would do. I said, I think I just took on this project. I didn't think I should have just designed my front garden. It would have been easier. But I guess taking this on was like, yeah, I learned loads. There was a lot that I initially took for granted when I came on the site, but I definitely look at things differently.
Okay. I have to give you some feedback now. That's my little bit. And I got 5 pages of notes, but I'll be brief.
I'll say hello to Stella too. Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Stella.
Oh, so she's only been home for a day since the last since the Kumi course. So firstly, I thought your intro. I'll just give feedback about the presentation because I think it's an interesting thing to go through. So you brought me into the picture really quickly. I haven't been there. You didn't tell me. I wondered what language people speak in Johannesburg, or is it many languages?
We've got 11 official languages,
Right.
Steve.
So it's got a lovely name. I love the name, but I wondered, yeah, what language that was in. That was, but yeah, you have
Zulu. Zulu, yes.
okay, Zulu. Okay, lovely. Okay, wonderful. I loved the video, the opening video, and again, that really gave me a context. That was a really powerful tool, because it's really difficult. I'm sure you found this, SB, is you haven't been there. It's really difficult to design a place you haven't been to, and it's only really recently I've even tried to give meaningful, constructive advice to people on places I haven't been to, in places I'm unfamiliar with the climate and the plants and stuff. So I think there's also a really, I'll try and say it's all in the right order, but yeah, it's an interesting challenge, and I think you've risen to it very well. So I wanted to congratulate you on that. And I felt I had quite quickly got an empathy for what the place was about. The client questionnaire was really good and really thorough. The client needs, when you identified that, and about actually breaking down the different client groups that you're building a relationship with. I thought that was very good, and that was something which we did within the Cultivate project, and thought a lot about how do we actually meet those guys or those guys or those guys, rather than just having a general approach. So about connecting with yous, how important is that? And this sort of idea about changing how people value growing skills, and how do we kind of make growing not sexy but interesting, vital, current, you know, something that young people want to engage with, rather than growing. That's what your grandparents did. Everybody wants to get away from that. The idea of farming is being boring. That's, you know, that's really old school. So I did also, so your growing skills is one thing, and then the sort of certified training. And I can see there's a massive need for that, because there's a kind of a real shortfall. And I thought, this is really important what you're doing, because there's loads and loads of people in that community whose needs are not being met. And you can imagine how their energy can become very destructive, and I'm sure it can be. And so, you know, there ought to be other agencies and things that would be wanting to support you in what you're doing. So it's good to be clear about what your objectives are, because actually you're doing a whole lot more than growing food. And in fact, the food's almost a byproduct of the youth engagement. You could almost look at it like that way. The product's the youth engagement, and the byproduct's the food, but actually enterprise and all of that sort of. So yeah, the base map, that I got the sense of that. I was always a little bit confused about the contours, but I got it. Is it reasonably steep? I wondered. I wasn't quite sure, but yeah. Obviously, you talked quite a lot about compost. I want to come back onto that, because obviously that's central to the whole thing. You identified the soil erosion and water conservation. Obviously, those things are always linked. Holding on to water and soil erosion are usually very closely linked. And then also, yes, you talked about maybe taking on other land, and that was interesting to hear. It has a chance to grow, and I just wanted to reinforce that thing about, yes, start small and slow solutions, make something work, and then, because you can always replicate it, you can always get bigger. And so don't try and take on too much at the beginning, which is what you're doing. So I wanted to recognize that. So then you did your design checklist, and we went through the principles, and you related the principles to each design function. I thought that was really good. You commented, SB, somewhere through, well, that's a bit boring, I've said this before. It's like, ding, correct. That's what we actually want to know, because we want to know that we're supporting each function multiple times. So it kind of, it's a little bit dull, not dull, but you know what I mean? It's not exciting, but the point is, we're double checking that we're hitting the mark every time. So there was lots of things like that.
It's more in the sense of a presentation, just you've heard me say this so many times.
Yes, I know, but that's kind of, yes, I know, I got you. I fully got
me doubting myself more than anything. Not
yeah, no. It was really good. It's great how the same things come again and again. And I thought, as a tool, this presentation would be really good to help educate all of the stakeholders in the project to understand why we're doing it like this. And it's because, that they all relate to our key objectives, and it's really good to be able to be explicit, implicit, whatever it is, to be precise about what your objectives are. Yeah, we're growing food, we're doing education. This one supports that function, that one supports that, in all these different ways. So that was great. I liked how you talk about diversity of plants, you related that to your integrated pest management, the systems thinking for gardening. Coppicing, I think, is a really, that was your number 5, principle 5 in that one. I think that's a really overlooked in Africa. It's not a lot of your trees coppice easily and readily, and it's not a thing that people do a lot of. So that would be really good to that's a little favorite of mine anyway. Yeah, blah blah. I took loads of notes. I liked all of that. One thing was when you got to your principle 12 in growing, I was reminded of, was it Ron Finley, the guy in LA, and he said to change a community, you've got to change the soil. And you touched on that, I think, about growing in a way that changes community, and that's so right. Okay, and what you're doing there is you're bringing your soil back to life, and in some indirect way that will have an impact on the whole community that surrounds it. So I like that. Your next function was the veg selling, and again we went through bits by bits. I like the way that you within that you were valuing the diversity of people and the diversity of the different skills that they would bring, and because you've got a diverse system with different things going on, then there's lots of different niches, there's lots of different ways you can engage with people, different ages, different abilities, and so forth. And if you just got a big field of cabbages, you can't do that. You know, you've got all these different systems going on, and links to community, variety of yields, and so forth. The one thing, when we got to the next function of okay, so compost, yeah, you need to get the compost right. Doing hot composting would solve a lot of the rat problems. There was somewhere you talked about inviting community members to bring you stuff for recycling. I liked that, but I would be specific about what you want, otherwise you'll become a rubbish dump. So you want to be, it's a particular time is we want dry grass. At a particular time we want whatever it is, but be very clear about what you want. And then people then might be interested. What they want, loads of cow muck, or they want whatever it is, you know. So be specific. Within the compost also, yes, you talked about having different styles and different approaches to composting, and that's also is, I think composting is really interesting as a subject. And like you say, you got your woody waste, your baby food waste, or hot composting, the worm bin composting. These are all ways to create engagement with people and to make it interesting to people.
Toilet composting is something that when I first learned blew my mind, and every time I use a toilet compost, I get so excited, and I love reading the little signs that people make about what happens to the wee and all of that. So it's just it's engaging. It is ways to, you know, inspire people that nothing is waste, really.
Especially children, because they're really hung up on toilets anyway. And no, it's really important. And you're actually educating people about this waste to resource. There is no waste. Waste is a resource, but your challenge is to know how to manage it. So in the same way as your water, it's a problem when it's causing erosion, but it's a bigger problem when you don't have it. You know, so that's, I think, there's a very big point about the toilet composting, which is educational in itself. Like, it's about shifting attitudes. So that, I think it's really important. But and then also you talked about access to different parts of the community. You're creating a replicable model. So the car wash. I wonder what happened to the wastewater. Does that create lots of wastewater in the car wash? Is there a resource there that you could harvest some of that? I'm just wondering. I realised also that it wasn't just about the car wash. It was about enterprise as a function within the space, wasn't it? And that's. I thought it was a really nice overlapping of functions. If you can bring people into the space for one reason, but you can engage with them so they experience it in another way. So people coming to car wash can use the play area, which is plenty of opportunity then to get them interested in the growing or the compost toilet or whatever else is there. So my only, not criticism, but my little observation was you did the soil erosion and water was your final function. And in some ways, that's the first function. Or that's the key thing that you need to be thinking about. And so important. And I was going to say, I'm really interested and keen about vetiver, and I think in itself it is a yield. It's a high value yield, and you can create living swales, living vetiver hedges just by planting them just no, 4 inches apart, 6 inches apart. You'll end up with a solid hedge. Now you could use tires as well. That might turn out to be a very robust and effective way to control water flow and to encourage it to percolate into the ground. So I think you have to think very hard about the water erosion, the soil erosion and water catchment. I think that's your overarching sort of challenge on a fundamental sort of level, you know. But so when it came to the map just totally made sense. And thank you to Kevin. And yeah, totally use whatever available resources you have. By all means, if your son, friend, whoever it was, has got the mapping software, then bring it on. Yeah, of course. So congratulations for your innovation there. But that was great. And like you say, it's got to look good. It's got to be effective at communicating your ideas, and that's all it needs to do. So in terms of looking professional, does it communicate the ideas that you want in the way that you want it to? It doesn't have to be a Picasso or something. So I thought that was really great. When I was looking at the map, I found myself thinking a lot about the water thing, because I just think that's so important. And I saw, so those swales that you drew at the top of the map, those are on contour, right? And I would be tempted, again, without going, hi, Ali, I would be tempted to, leave the land above alone, but other than look about water catchment up there, because the more you can slow that water down above the side, it's only going to go downhill. If you can dig a really big swale up there somewhere and get that water to soak into the ground, even if it's off your side, it's only going to come down to you. It's only going to go downhill. It's got nowhere else to go. And so eventually you'll build up the moisture in your soil. So the more you can get it to soak in above your site, I put a lot of resource there. And again, vetiver is fantastic for that. I like to use sweet potatoes and other things that might enjoy the extra moisture. But of course, it's not a perennial. But everything else just made sense. Everything, you'd thought everything through, so there was an absolute logic to what you were doing. Again, obviously not a monoculture, but vetiver is a valuable crop, and if you're growing a lot of it, you can dig them up and separate out, make new plants. You can crop it as a feed for goats and chickens and stuff, and you can use it as a material for building. You can weave it, and of course you can extract the essential oil, which is, I like the idea of I think you said lots of aromatic plants and things to discourage whatever rats and vermin. Also it works for mosquitoes. And actually vetiver hedges disrupt the stem borers for maize and armyworm, I think. So it's a very useful plant, and we could use a lot more of it, I think. And that could be something that was within, another valuable yield of the system. But great. I thought it was a really brilliant presentation. I love the logic, the way you thought it all through. You related it all very clearly to the principles. And I think that's a great tool to have to initiate people into the projects. They can understand, how we got there. Because in 5 years' time, they might not have a sense of the journey that you were on, or however long, to get there. So, yeah, congratulations. Really, really good.
Thank you.
You made me want to come there too. I thought, I'll come and be part of this project. It looks brilliant. But it's challenging, but you're touching on so many key needs within that community. And it's brave and it's bold and it's optimistic and ambitious. And it's kind of what we need right now is people to take that plunge. So I really wish you luck with that. It's a fantastic project. Ali, are you going to go down and visit, did you say? No, we can't hear him.
We're still on mute, Ali.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
It's nice to see you. It's been a long journey through all this. A a lot has been happening here with me. I've been sick with the flu and cough. Fair, you knew that, and Steve, I told you, but I'm really healing so swiftly, and I'm feeling fine. Steve, I'm sorry guys for joining in late, but I was out. So I'm happy that